Hello everyone, welcome to the Starving Podcast. This is your host, Justin Romer. I'm going to introduce a few of our sponsors. Our first sponsor is GenoPalate. They're a genetic nutrition company that analyzes your genes and tells you how to eat for your genes and for your specific goals. It tells you a lot about a variety of food sensitivities, how you metabolize different macronutrients, and how you absorb and digest a variety of different vitamins. So head over to the link in our bio and get $20 off your order with code CBG. Our second sponsor is X-Endurance. They're a third-party supplement company that tests all their products off-site. They have a wide variety of products and flavors of protein, creatine, immune support, omega D3, you name it. So if you want 10% off your first order, head over to the link in our bio. Our third sponsor is Perform-A-Sleep. These beds are extremely comfortable. They come in all sizes from single all the way up to California King. So if you want $75 off this bed, head over to Perform-A-Sleep and use code CBG75. Our fourth sponsor is Dad Bod Fitness Online. If you're looking to transition from this quarantine lifestyle and become more active, there's a lot of home workouts, both the pump and dad sesh, provided by Dad Bod Fitness, and they provide this within just 20 to 30 minutes workouts at your home. So if you're looking to improve your fitness and get back in shape, this is a great place to start. Our fifth sponsor is Consistency Breeds Growth. They're a customized nutrition company that specifically works with you one-on-one with some of the best coaches in the world. So if you want a customized approach towards your nutrition to hit some of your goals, whether it be weight loss or performance, head over to their website at consistencybreedsgrowth.com and ask for more information. Today, we have a special guest, Sherry Zhang. She's going to be talking to us about GenoPalate. She is the CEO and founder. So we're going to hop right in and we'll talk to you guys soon.
It's science.
Hello everybody, Sherry Zhang. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for having me, Justin. How are you?
I'm doing well. We're very excited to have you on. We've been following your company and using a lot of the information from GenoPalate to customize a lot of our nutrition plans over the past couple of years. So we're definitely extremely excited to get into a lot of the genetics and DNA behind why people have so much success and how they can use their genes to essentially program, design, and eat the right way.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll introduce you really quick. So Sherry has her PhD in molecular biology and postdoctoral training in human population genomics. And she uses DNA technologies, both wet and in computer labs, to analyze DNA and understand the casualties of obesity and metabolic disorders. As you know, these are some of the top causes of death, especially in Western society. And so obviously with a lot of overweight Americans comes out a lot of different dieting approaches, and hers is obviously one rooted directly in DNA and genetics, specifically for people pre-diabetic. And because of that and because of her background, she founded GenoPalate. And GenoPalate is a company that analyzes individuals' genetic data, demographic, and lifestyle information, and then provides personalized insights into how to eat, including specific recipes for people. And that's amazing background, if you ask me. It's we're very excited to talk about more science today with you.
Thank you for the very kind intro.
Absolutely. So now we partnered with you guys because we believed in your mission at GenoPalate to for a lot of the health concerns, especially for Americans today. Now, I'm wondering what specifically is your mission for the company, and what is GenoPalate, and what does it specifically provide to their customers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So my background, as you laid out, is I was in an academic setting studying obesity and using DNA technologies, DNA and primary sequences differences that we're using today for GenoPalates and customers, but also something called beyond the genes, meaning called epigenomics, and I'm sure we'll have enjoyable time talking about that, hopefully later. So with all this background, I think my mission, both in the academic or today at GenoPalate, is the same. It is really helping people finding the truth about themselves, finding the truth that will help them to optimize their life. In this particular case, is nutrition and eating, which is really the gateway to your metabolic health, in our opinion, from the scientific community. So that's the mission that I brought to GenoPalate from day one. And today we're really mission to help people eat nutritiously for reaching their optimal health and maintaining it, right? I mean, we all talking about losing some weight is relatively straightforward, but keeping it off is so hard. And then within 2 years, usually, whatever the weight you lost, you're gonna gain back. So, what is the truth inside of our genetic code in your own unique eating setup is what we're trying to find out for each person. And then GenoPalate today is really developed into a data-driven personalized nutrition platform. We, in the core of the technology, we have the most comprehensive technology for nutrigenomics, but we are so much more than that. Today we're gonna tackle into people's preferences, lifestyle, social determinants of health, and all together to really map out what is your unique eating solution. The value, as I kind of alluded to already, is to help you for the first time access your own biology, hack into, if you may, into your genetic code, and then we're gonna build out of that, but including your gender and age and health and conditions and health goals and so on and so forth, to reach your optimal health.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we resonate with that a lot. I spoke briefly with Justyna about this. There are a lot of different diets out there, right? And when one works for someone, they say, this is great, it worked. And then they stop following that diet because they didn't establish particular lifestyle habits, right? And they end up losing all of the progress that they had before. But when you get your DNA report, your DNA doesn't lie. You can't come out with the excuse like, oh, keto actually doesn't work very well for me.
Exactly.
It sort of removes that barrier, and it provides a lot more transparency for people, their DNA, and it provides a lot of insight into, look, this is what your DNA is telling you, and this is what you should be doing. And I think for a lot of people, those unanswered questions from GenoPalate are the key to unlocking, like you said, optimizing health and performance.
Yeah, absolutely. I always, speak to a person's genome and health, and in the context of 3 chapters, if you may, right? You were born into this world with your past, right? That's your nutritional ancestry and ancestry of everything. And then today is your present, right? This is by being informed of all your ancestry is about, you can make the better and more intelligent decision around everything in your life, including eating, and so that you can walk into your future with the best possibility for success, right? So, and epigenomics kind of play also an important role in mediating the interaction between the genes and the environment. So, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a perfect segue into our next question. Pretty much this just has to do with what exactly the scientific process, I know you kind of alluded to it earlier, but what the scientific process of our DNA profiling and genotyping actually is while you are in the process of helping the clients who sign up for GenoPalate figure out what genes or what their nutritional history may say in their DNA, and why or why not do you think some people may be hesitant upon, spitting into that test tube and sending it over your way?
Yeah. So, I would say DNA is probably one of your most private asset you can ever have, right? So totally understand any concerns around either privacy or what you're going to do with my DNA or my sample, that kind of concerns. And then we do see some questions from the people are interested in GenoPalate but hasn't made that decision. So we do a lot of coaching and education around that mentality. But as a solution, we, my DNA information, my son's information, all the people I care so much for, and including all the customers, are all in the same place. So we treat them with the highest possible measures of security, safety, and privacy as possible. We, as a company, we invested from day one because of my background a lot into the technology to protect people's privacy. And at the lab, when you do spit in the tube, as you said, or right now we're using a swab, it's a kind of second evolution of our home kits. You will send that in and drop mail, and then our lab will receive it. It's a clear lab. And the trained, the lab personnel will extract the DNA from the sample you provided, and then going through a pretty lengthy process, as you can imagine. It's a very sensitive and also complicated procedure to take your few of your scrape of your epithelial cells and all the way take it to where we can read more than 700,000 of naturally happen mutations we call SNPs, or single nucleotide polymorphisms, where between Justyna and me, we are born with in the range of 3 to 5 million letters differences brought by our differences in our ancestries. Some of them may not mean anything for our health or traits, like eye color or earwax phenotypes, whatnot, or type 2 diabetes predisposition, but some will. And we capture those over 100 biomarkers specifically for your capability of metabolizing food and nutrients. So that's really what happened at the lab.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and you can clearly see this because you guys educate very well within the reports that you send out to people that sign up for GenoPalate and decide to provide their DNA. And I think a lot of those people specifically are concerned with weight loss, body composition, improving the way that they look. And I would like to know, in terms of the metabolism in these single nucleotide polymorphisms that you described and their prevalence, how can someone take the GenoPalate report and use it on their weight loss journey, for example?
Yeah, our customers use information provided us for a different variety of uses, and some of the user stories came back to us is effortless weight loss experiences, and also sustainable. That's the most wonderful thing that our technology can enable, is a sustainability in your optimal optimization of your health. Some of our hypothesis is, of course, we can monitor that person all the time. So our hypothesis, by the feedback and also our understanding of the studies goes into our algorithm, is that the different genotype of a person will segment that person into a different reaction to the same food, right? You may have a different genotype for the genes for the obesity called FTO, for example. And I may have a different allele or genotypes, which put us at different risk level for gained weight over fatty foods, for example, right? There's a lot of molecular biology to just that one gene, and we cover so many more and the combinations of them. But that particular gene is actually affecting how your brain, the satiety, how you feel about when you ingest certain food, how satisfied you are. So that, eventually will lead to different behavior and lead to different outcomes of health. That's just one example. And then we deal with over 100 biomarkers and 23 different nutrients plus substances such as alcohol and caffeine and gluten and lactose. So all of them are based on peer-reviewed original study from research. So think about you can think like other people try those nutritional regimen for you, happen to have your specific combinations of genotype and resulted in certain outcomes for metabolic health, and we help you to learn from that experiment.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that actually is a good point, because as we know, our genes can somehow give us a physiological response whenever we consume some foods. And I know some people sometimes, I don't want to say assume, but just sometimes believe that their food allergies are actually a genetic basis and they come from a genetic component, that you're born with these food allergies. Can this report in a way detect any allergies or intolerances? And if so, what are the differences between those intolerances to allergies or sensitivities?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. So there are acquired phenotypes, right? Those are mostly, for example, people develop allergies towards beehive or strawberries, right? Those are acquired, and there's theory that you could kind of develop the same symptoms as your father and mother, but it's hard to dissect whether it's because you live in the same households or really this is genetic, right? So there's a lot of study and debate around that topic, but what we, the scientist group or community accept as evidence-based wisdom is most of the allergies we observe are acquired. They are immunological responses to allergens, right? In other ways, it's actually a protection mechanism our body developed over the time, where when you have a invader, whatever that is, we felt it could be a virus, it could be a bacteria, and then we treat them as foreigners and we try to tackle them, right? Attack them and swallow them and get rid of them. But when they are foods, and that became a problem, right? We don't recognize it as a food, it's good for our body. We attack them as if they're virus. So, and that's why we got rashes and, we got tummy pains and all these symptoms, including gluten sensitivities. And there are also offered by GenoPalate genetic biomarkers that have been shown to represent certain phenotypes such as celiac disease. They're not celiac disease diagnosis markers, to be clear, but they represent the people having those genotypes have a higher likelihood presenting those phenotypes, which is discomfort to their body as a gluten sensitivities. And we also have sensitivities to lactose. And then me personally have that genotype, unfortunately, while I'm living in Wisconsin, which has a lot of cheese too.
Oh boy.
Very tempting, but so I love that. So I actually choose, provided by my company's intelligence, I choose a variety of low lactose cheese and yogurt and things like that, and then I have been happier. than before without me knowing that. It was really, really hard because you like those fatty foods because I have the FTO gene genotype we talk about. And then I really like the cheesy taste, but at the same time, I suffer from the lactose so over the years, it's always kind of a hit and run kind of situation. And also as a mother, once I knew my lactose genotype for sure, I turned around right away, tested for my son's genome, and turned out he also have that Asian genotype, and his life now is more in order. So that's kind of our family story around using more informed decision-making process to help your own wellness. So those are the examples where there's definitely genetic markers for sensitivities, or some people refer to them as intolerance, but they're not quite the same as allergies.
Right. I do have kind of a second question to go off of that, just out of curiosity. Let's say I'm pregnant and the maternal transfer and then just the epigenetic environment of the pretty much the baby. Is there a way that what I'm eating can affect the genome of my baby?
Yes, that's a fascinating topic and good question too. I actually today I was just reviewing a paper for British Journal of Nutrition on that topic. Details that because I'm a reviewer I couldn't disclose, but in my background studying epigenomics for metabolic syndrome, there's a lot of and increasingly so the evidence showing the mother in pregnancy, whatever she eats. Well, there's some story about the paternal too, which is totally very interesting too, is whatever you eat will actually pass through, obviously, and then actually trigger long-term offspring's epigenomic gene expression changes. Some of them will lead to permanent results such as hypertension, pre-diabetic status, and so on, and dyslipidemia, and all the metabolic and syndrome conditions. And some are not going to be permanent or transient. And there's a lot of animal studies going on too. What I found interesting is the paternal BMI, if the father has a weight issue, that can somehow influence the offspring's epigenomic landscape. Yeah, it's quite interesting.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, half the DNA does come from the male.
Exactly.
I've seen some studies that a lot of what the woman's weight as well as what she's eating, does affect the baby in utero. So the fact that the male is intertwined into this equation is super fascinating, and I'd love to hear more about that at some point because a lot of people, at least, especially through nutrition coaching, a lot of women will work with us directly when they're pregnant or postpartum and they're still breastfeeding, and obviously this is still a very important time for the baby. So looking for more information on that is incredible. I do want to talk a little bit more about when we spoke about the metabolism. And I know that we talked specifically about weight loss and that there are specific genes that could encode for someone being at a higher risk for type 2 diabetes, for example. And I've heard or read somewhere that it's almost people are starting to consider type 2 diabetes as almost an autoimmune disease. Obviously, we know type 1 is an autoimmune disease, and the celiacs that you mentioned before is an autoimmune disease. It was Zhang. She's an immunologist, and she told me that there more and more literature coming out now that's saying that type 2 diabetes is also an autoimmune disease. Regardless of whether that's true or not, what are some genes or some other factors, right, in people's DNA that might give us information to whether they're predisposed to an autoimmune disease and which autoimmune disease it might be? Because obviously a lot of them are related. You have rheumatoid arthritis, celiac disease, lupus. Is there some underlying genes here that people should be looking at, or do we have access to?
To a certain degree, right? So this autoimmune or pro-inflammatory, right? That's when I was studying obesity at medical college, and we established a theory where obesity and type 2 diabetes are both chronic pro-inflammatory disease in a perspective. It's really think about you have a body and have an optimal range of taking on things and then digest them, dispose them. And then, in a modern lifestyle, we kind of overload it, right, necessarily, one way or another. And over time, the machinery just gets saturated. We just can no longer handle that extra pounds of fats, extra pounds of lipids, or, molecules of lipids, sugar, right? That's the type 2 diabetes. So that's kind of the underlying mechanism, if you may, go into all these pro-inflammatory and autoimmune theories. So definitely there are increasing evidence, a debate around that topic. And to your point, the underlying some genes that shown to have some prominent roles, one is the HLA-DQA1 and the HLA-DQA gene as a family. It's many genes similar to each other in functions and gene sequence in a way. So those genes are actually the reason people, when people have transplant, they have rejection reaction. Those are actually the genes to help you determine, clinically we use those genotype to determine whether you are a match or not. So when similarly, those genotype are actually underlying some of the gluten sensitivities we actually are looking at for our customers. I don't know whether I give you the clear picture, but there's as you can imagine, science still figuring things out. Yeah. But I think there are definitely pro-inflammatory pathway genes are playing very important roles in making sure your metabolic conditions are being balanced, or if go wrong, are not.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems all very complex. I mean, based on the number of genes that we have and the number of combination perturbations that those genes can be in. And I guess specifically they would have to locate a gene, knock out that gene, and then determine if the response is still the same for that specific person. I mean, I think that's the general mechanism. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think it's something related to that, and it seems like that's pretty challenging to do.
Yeah, that's why people use mostly animal models to do those knock-out, knock-in. Obviously, it's hard to convince anybody to opt into those kind of research. But there's some gene therapy that you can target it. Like the CRISPR-Cas gene editing technology really blew up recently. It's a very targeted way of specifically knock in, knock out, or change nucleotide in a specific gene. So we kind of look forward to how that can revolutionize our genomics in clinics.
Yeah, that's super fascinating. It's becoming, obviously we're becoming more and more aware, and there's a lot more information coming out with different genes that are going to allow people to optimize their lifestyle in some way. It could be through sports, or it could be through just feeling good every day and just being healthy overall and extending their lifetime. Specifically for performance athletes. Okay, so Sherry, I want you to imagine a scenario. Your son, he's 2 years old, right? He has a GenoPalate report. His GenoPalate report also includes what fiber type predisposition that he has. So like whether he's fast twitch muscle fiber or slow twitch. So like fast twitch muscle fiber are typically athletes that do sprints and maximal lifts, like they lift a lot of weight one time. And then slow twitch muscle fibers are like marathon runners, like long distance, or swimmers long distance, right? So imagine having the genotypes for that, plus the genotypes for the health report, which are specific genes. What if those don't match up very well? So, for example, his fiber type is fast twitch, and it says he can't tolerate carbohydrates or metabolize carbohydrates well. I mean, I'm assuming that wouldn't be the case. They'd probably match up because if the muscles that he's using are fast twitch, he's likely going to metabolize carbs extremely well. But imagine having that information. Is this all of that information? Is it possible to gear people at a very young age not only to optimize health, but like you said, your son doesn't eat or drink or have any lactose, right? This is extremely important for his health, especially at a young age. Could we also have a trend or include things in a GenoPalate report in the future, or just DNA reports in the future, that give a more whole picture, maybe even the possible the DNA sequencing, the entire genome, and utilize this? I'm sorry my question was so long, but I hope you...
No, fascinating scenario. So thank you for the picture. I mean, that's what, predictive precision medicine is about, right? It's about, without even, the person getting to 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years of experimenting, right? We already knew from the day one, or even before the baby is born, because DNA is static. I think the whole direction is where we're going to be more predictive, be more preventive, right? Become a truly healthcare society versus sick care society today. But I think there's several questions I want to capture them. One is if they don't necessarily match 100%, and I think that will be common, right? In the way that because each of us have around 28,000 genes. The combinations of those effects and expression and phenotypes, and as you imagine, is just through the roof, right? So and then there's epigenomic mechanism, there's proteomics, metabolomics, all these considered. I think we're trying to capture the mainstream or the master genes, the most effective ones, as much as the technology allows. And I think those give you general directions, right? You're going towards North Star instead of South Star. And then in there, over time, I think it's our job, and together, not just GenoPalate as a provider, is really a partnership between you and us, as you as a user of the technology, to keep feeding each other the information that unique to you, and then keep changing over time. Life events happened and you're aging and all that. I think that's the key to really make the prediction more accurate to reality. So that's one kind of perspective on the data-driven side of it. And then the tolerance level is all relative, right? So when we give your results, and I haven't seen it, obviously it's your private information, but I'm assuming it's kind of like almost like a pie chart. We give you a range of optimal from our reading of your genomics and everything else. So it's never really absolute. Like this person isn't gonna never digest any carb, right? It's all the relativity plays a role in our determination. So I think there's ambient opportunity for us to work with that insights and find your optimal range of nutrition for your performance. Did I answer your questions?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, good. I want to make sure I capture all that.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Yeah. My question is, if you personally could choose any one or few genes that you could add to your genetic report for GenoPalate, which ones do you think would be the most beneficial for individuals who order your kits?
That's a great one. I have so many because I know what we can develop, and I keep telling my team, oh, I want this and that. Wow, it's so many. I think the first one, I am a foodie, so I want my flavor genes are in the report. I know we have candidates, they're just not developed yet or not implemented yet, but hopefully soon. Other ones will be, we're interested in joining some sort of nutrition to performance, right? To Justin's example, coffee, caffeine metabolism. We already have that, but there's so much to the caffeine energy, axis, and to do with your sleep, right? All of these, actually, there's a lot of genetic evidence now. So I think those will be, athletes, it matters a lot how much caffeine they take in their performance, right? You're the experts. So those are the things I probably want to see people start using from GenoPalate in the near future.
Very nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's great. So, I think that was extremely informative for everyone, especially for me, and I hope, definitely for our listeners. And if you think you were smart before, then you better rethink that. This is super insightful. It makes me want to just go into the literature right now and literally read everything that I can about this. I know that this is the future of nutrition, and I will keep saying that. I truly believe it is the way to cure human disease, specifically obesity. The obesity number globally has now topped the people that are starving number, which is it's incredible. And I think finding other ways through a coach and through information, especially through something as specific as your DNA, there's not a single person that has the same DNA besides your twin, identical twin, right? So if you can access that information, I think it becomes inordinately helpful for helping people get back on track with a good lifestyle that is prosperous, and they feel empowered, healthy, and they can live a full, prosperous life. So we really do appreciate you coming on today, Sherry. Yes. That was awesome. And we once we have more specific topics, we can definitely have you back on in the future if you'd like to do that.
I'll be happy to. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Thank you, Sherry. Thanks, Justyna, and everybody for listening today. If you are looking for your GenoPalate report, you can go to the link in our bio and get $20 off using code CBG. Sherry, would you like to tell everyone where they can find you? GenoPalate.com.
Yep, that's the place to get more information about this.
Excellent. And if you already have existing 23andMe data or Ancestry DNA data, you are able to directly order the GenoPalate report and just essentially upload that DNA data to them. You get it a lot faster, and it is cheaper. So also keep that in mind as you're possibly thinking about using the GenoPalate data as a tool to improve your nutrition. Thanks everyone for listening today, and we will talk to you soon. Bye guys.